Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday, August 1st. Exciting, exciting.
This year is just flying by.
Flying by. So waiting for everybody to get on.
I'm not seeing us on my Facebook feed.
Well, Tisha just said good morning, so it's a great
There.
morning.
Now we're here. What up, Tish? Long time no see.
Hello, Marissa. Welcome back. We missed you.
Marissa, vacation's over. It's time to get to work, right?
She stayed on point on vacation. I'm just saying, I'm gonna appoint her our new vacation specialist. She freaking stayed on point, lost weight on vacation, stayed on track.
Yeah, that's impressive to lose weight on vacation. And my thing is, like, if you can maintain, you're doing pretty well. My girl lost weight, so kudos to you.
Just saying. Marissa, I know your plate's pretty full, but I'm throwing that out there. We're hiring you. I also clearly am not doing well with my coffee restriction, so.
I don't have any coffee restrictions.
I think we're just waiting on a few more people to hop on. We can see everybody. Those of you guys that are on, say hello. Let us know you're watching.
I apologize in advance. The lighting in this room is god awful. I'm gonna have my boy Chris, our electrician, hook it up. We're gonna throw some LEDs in here. What do you think, Dr. Lacey?
I think that looks good. What is very easy to see is your wrestling match with your 3-year-old nephew gave you a nice little.
Yeah, he doesn't understand that wrestling doesn't mean like you shouldn't punch people in the face. So I got popped in the face yesterday a couple times.
Oh, by a 3-year-old. That's okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Happens.
So this week and next week are actually joint topics. We're going to be just talking about broad spectrum, like nutrition, how to eat, like generally for like an anti-inflammatory benefit. So just really like generic, like what is good food to put in your body? What are bad foods to not put in your body? So again, this is a 2-part series. So this week in the inflammation and hormones group, you're going to see post piggybacking on what we're talking about today. And then next week's as well, piggybacking on that as well. So again, today's topic is anti-inflammatory diet and nutrition, part 1. What we want to start out with saying is that this is not specific to each individualized person. That's something that, like Dr. Seth, you go over with patients once we have customized testing, hormone mapping, digestive protocols. But these are just general rules that, like, across the board we should stick to as far as like what's good, what's bad. And then of course each person needs to fine tune that based upon their specific protocols. So
yep,
that's what Stacy's for.
And thank God we have Stacy. Right?
Absolutely. All right, so here's the thing. Anti-inflammatory and good nutrition is kind of confusing because we've got like what? Whole30, we've got paleo, we've got keto, we've got Atkins. What are some of the other ones?
Carnivore, blood testing diet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's a million of them.
There's a million, and they're all, like, for the most part, pretty good. I mean, each one has its own like specific, like, oh, maybe that's not perfect for some people. Like, for instance, the carnivore diet pretty much is a great concept because if you're eating good quality protein, like that's great, and you're reducing carbohydrate intake, especially if it's bad carbs. But then we're neglecting like vegetables, which are really important, especially for females, for like detoxification of your estrogen pathways. So again, like no one diet is right for everybody, which is why it can be really frustrating. You go on Whole30 and you eat perfect and you don't really change as far as weight goes or symptoms go. And you're like, what the heck? Like my friend that just did it lost 30 pounds, feels amazing, and I feel like the same, if not worse. And it's because, again, that's where like the customized protocols based on your health your health history, your physiology and anatomy is what really is going to make the difference. So again, generic overhaul of what good versus bad is today and next week. So does that make sense? Anything to add, Dr. Seth?
No, I mean, you said it perfect. And we all have that friend that just, oh, so happy for you. You lost 20 pounds. I did the same diet and I gained 5. It's so frustrating. But obviously, we talk really, really hard about testing food sensitivities. We don't need to beat a dead horse there. But then also just broad spectrum, what are lifestyle components as it relates to our nutrition that we need to be hitting, independent of what our food allergy testing is showing. How to navigate through, how to read ingredients, all those things are all crucial to a healthy lifestyle. And I hate the word diet because, basically the way that you and I eat, Dr. Lacey, most people would consider it a diet. It is not a diet. It is our lifestyle. And people that are around us, there are absolute no's for us. We had a birthday party for our 6-year-old niece. And it was pretty funny. A margarita truck pulled up into front of our house, and I looked at my wife. I'm like, "Did you do this?" And she looked at me. She's like, "Did you do this?" And it actually ended up being for a neighbor. So on the fly, we rented one. And let's be real. Slushies are not the path to health. So we got it for the kids. And if some adults wanted some alcoholic beverages, they could have that. I did not have one, Dr. Lacey. I was not worried about you having one. That's just not what we do. And it had nothing to do with the diet. It's just, there's absolute lines in the sand that you and I don't cross.
Well, and here's the reality too. Like we talk about, like people always laugh when they come to like birthday parties for their kids and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm shocked you guys have this." It's like, here's the reality. The kids eat on point, I would say like 80 to 90% of the time. So it's like, just like with us, I think telling yourself you can't ever have certain foods is like completely unrealistic, and you're setting yourself up for failure. So like for me personally, like if I'm going to cheat or like have something that's not like approved for my body, having a slushie with artificial dyes and high fructose corn syrup, like that's not going to be for me. Like, trust me, there are plenty of other things that I would cheat on. It's just for me, that wasn't it. And so it was really funny. There were like a lot of moms who obviously were at the party that, were like, "Oh, is it okay if the kids have this?" Knowing that there's dyes and high fructose corn syrup. And it's like, no, it's not really okay, but like it's a party, it's fun, like, okay, go for it. And then we were laughing because like a couple hours later, like the kids were like horribly behaved and like losing their mind. And I'm like, oh my God, could you just imagine if this was an all day, everyday thing? So again, like what we're talking about too is like really making this a lifestyle change, so that again, like if you go out to eat and you have no control, or you're on vacation, like it's not the end of the world if you're not perfect. It's just, what can we do to make sure that this is a lifestyle thing, so that if you have an issue and you slip up, like literally tomorrow, you're going to be right back on track again, because that's reality. Okay. You don't need to be perfect 100% of the time. You just need to be willing to course correct. So the number one thing that we talk about just in general with anti-inflammatory, proper nutrition, just overall lifestyle change, is the quality of protein that you put in your body. And this is so important, because this is one of those things that we talk about is a lifestyle change in our house. And like whenever we go to cook protein, like it's only good options. So again, number one thing that we need to change when it comes to nutrition is good quality protein and meat. So if you want to talk about what that means specifically.
Yeah, I'd love to. And that's where people can really get off on the wrong path, is we've been brainwashed, by what, big meat, I guess you want to call it that, that white meat is healthy for you, therefore red meat is unhealthy for you, and it'll give you heart disease and it'll give you cancer and all these types of things. So let's just throw that out the window. I would say, with the exception of maybe pork, it's, the meat can be healthy for you or unhealthy for you, independent of what it is, based upon how it was gathered. Okay. So for instance, seafood, is seafood good for you or bad for you? It's both. Okay. And what I mean by that is, wild line caught salmon is great for you. Farmed Atlantic salmon with dyes injected into it, so the color of the meat looks something similar to wild, is going to be horrible for you, and it will give you cancer, and it'll give you heart disease and all these horrible things, right? It's same thing with red meat. Grass-fed, grass-finished red meat can never be bad for you unless you have a food allergy to it, right? So we're talking generalities. You know, the Harris ranches where it's a feedlot and you can smell it before you can see it, that meat is going to cause sickness and disease, you know, more than likely in a person, because the animal's stressed, the animal's in its own garbage, basically. It's being fed garbage. It's all the byproducts from, you know, what, chocolate and corn and as cheap as food as possible. So the cow's eating that, and then you eat the cow, what are you eating, right? Same thing with chicken. Chicken gets a pass with everybody, and I don't understand that. Chicken inherently is healthy for us. Absolutely not. If you've seen things like, you know, documentaries like Food Matters, that kind of stuff, it's like, no, chickens are 5 times the size they were in 1950. Why is that? Because they're getting injected with growth hormones and steroids, and then they're being treated with antibiotics. And what you're starting to see now is a pushback. So people are wising up to that with poultry. So if it's not organic, what you will see with most poultry products is it'll say antibiotic and grain free on the label, because people don't want to be putting that in their body. So organic is the bare minimum standard. Okay, and then we're gonna leave fish out of this because that's where it gets tricky. But organic is the bare minimum. If we're gonna go a step above, we want pastured, organic, grass-fed. If we hit those metrics, we're gonna be just fine. Now, I said it's tricky because sometimes what you'll see is organic fish. Dr. Lacey, what the heck does organic fish mean?
Your guess is as good as mine, because when fish come from a large body of water, how can you control like what? Yeah.
So what organic fish means, it's actually a way of saying farm-raised fish that's fed organic food. So organic fish is a big time no-no. Right. Wild is the buzzword. If you can get wild, you're good. I think Costco does a fantastic job with seafood. And be very, very careful. Read your labels, because they have both. You know, wild, fresh halibut, they also have farmed halibut. So farmed versus fresh is going to be everything. And, you know, previously frozen, does it taste as good? No, not always. But I would take previously frozen wild over fresh farmed every day of the week.
And that's where the Instapot really helps with like frozen fish, because I will say, which we're working on doing a bunch of videos for how to cook fish, because I know that's kind of a hard one for people, which is why a lot of people don't have that in their diet, and that's a problem because fish is so good. Also, eating different types of protein is really good for your digestive system, hormones, things like that. But like cooking frozen fish in the Instapot, like you can barely tell that it's frozen. So that's a really easy way. Plus then like time management, like all of that stuff, the Instapot really does help. And that's where, like you said, Costco is great because the pricing is really fantastic for wild frozen fish. They're individually packaged. So whether you're doing a meal just for you or a meal for you and your spouse or you and the kids, I feel like that is honestly like the best bang for your buck. Is Costco, and it's all like Kirkland brand too, and it's all wild. So I'm all about like eating as financially responsible as possible, and really we are really blessed, at least with our Costco, that there are so many options that are like so cost effective comparatively. So
yep, and not to just keep hammering the fish stuff, but I think right now Costco has fresh wild salmon, I want to say for $9.99 a pound. And what I like about it is, for a person that's intimidated by cooking fish, the fillets are very thin. So really all you need to do is just section it off into individual servings, pan fry it in ghee, left side down, and then flip it and cook the skin until like you push it down with your finger and it's pretty rigid. You're done. You take it off, put whatever garnish on it, and it's easy. So that's where I would start if a person's like, man, I know I should be eating more fish, I just don't know how to cook it. Pretty easy.
Yeah, we'll do a whole video on that because I know we get asked that a lot. Stacy gets asked that a lot because again, it can be a little intimidating, and I'm not even going to put my 2 cents in because I don't cook. So
that might be a good video, Dr. Lacey, is walking you through how to cook salmon, because you do not cook salmon.
No, definitely not. We always get asked this question just as we're talking about seafood. People ask about tilapia. In our opinion, that is a fish we never ever eat. And the reason why is tilapia can only be farm raised. So just by the sheer metrics of how tilapia is created is a no-go for us. I see like sometimes they're like, oh, it's organic tilapia. I'm like, you'll never see wild tilapia because it doesn't exist. So that is a fish that, like, regardless of if it's on your food sensitivity or not, it's just a fish that's like, that really should just be a no-go for you. So
yeah, it mainly comes from South America. And what do they have to feed fish in South America? Corn.
Yeah. So it's not great. Okay. All right, let's move into sugar. And again, this is not meant to be everything you need to know about nutrition, but just good quality, quick tips. So when it comes to sugar, sugar is super inflammatory. You actually have 8 times more receptors for sugar on cancer and inflammatory cells than on regular cells. So scientifically speaking, when you feed your body cancer, whether it comes from naturally occurring sugar or not, when you feed your body sugar, whether it's from fruit, whether it's converted into sugar from a grain, it doesn't matter. You are more prone to feeding inflammation and cancer-derived cells. So that's why this is also a lifestyle thing. We do not consume copious amounts of sugar in our house, in our diet, because it is a recipe for disaster. It's not an if, it is an absolute, which is why if you don't believe me, go give your kids a ridiculous amount of sugar and pay attention to how they act, how they sleep, their attitude. Can I go on for hours?
Oh man, yeah, they turn them into maniacs. Right?
Their digestive system the next couple days, especially if they're still little and you're still doing like more diapers and helping with potty training. Like, it's just a disaster. Okay. So sugar really should be in such a small quantity. If we get sugar, we prefer it to be in its most natural occurring form. So like in the form of fruit, which again, we don't eat a ton of fruit. I would say we probably maybe have like 1 serving a day. Again, as a lifestyle. Some days, like the birthday party, like we had a fruit tray and it was great. But really you want to minimize sugar to like fruit. And again, the best fruit are going to be like more antioxidant fruit. So like apples, berries, lower glycemic index. But really what we're talking about is like added sugar. So we get a lot of times where people are like, oh, I don't really eat sugar. And I'm like, yeah, you do. Because what people think eating sugar is they're thinking like, oh, I don't take a spoonful of sugar and put it in my coffee, or I don't take a spoonful of sugar and put it in my cereal. Like, they only think about like adding sugar into their diet as what they consume. And the reality is that's not what we're talking about. You want to take the lead on this one, Dr. Seth?
Yeah, and actually, ironically, Coffee with the Docs, I think coffee-based products are the largest source of hidden sugar, and people don't even identify it as an issue. So this brand right here, what we have in here is coffee with nitrogen in it. That's why it gives it that foam. But you shouldn't be adding stuff to your coffee.
Yeah.
When we talk about food journaling, a person's like, I don't really eat breakfast. I kind of already do the fasting thing. I just have a mocha frappuccino to get started. I'm like, okay, there's over 100 grams of sugar in a venti mocha frappuccino, plus the dairy. The worst way to start your day is a storm of caffeine, sugar, and dairy. Yeah. You have no chance. So start looking at those types of things. Start reading nutritional facts, because sugar is slipped into everything if you're not careful. Find its natural state.
And that's something that our nutritionist works with you guys specifically, because some people can have a little bit more sugar than others in the form of like naturally occurring like healthy carbohydrates. So again, these are just generalizations, but like one of the most frustrating things is like not everybody needs to do intermittent fasting. And so like our breakfast food industry is all the worst possible freaking foods. Like, it's cereal and milk. I'm like, okay, so that's dairy, carbs, and sugar. Like, and we wonder why kids are bouncing off the walls and can't concentrate. Like breakfast sandwiches. If you're gonna eat breakfast, what you never want to do is you don't ever want to consume like carbs and fat like together, because it's really hard on your digestive system. So like breakfast sandwiches, like if you took the bread off and you ate like the egg and the bacon or the meat, like great, as long as you don't have an allergy to eggs. Like perfect. But if we look back at like what we used to eat for breakfast, it used to be like hearty foods. Like if you're going to break your fast in the morning, you need to be breaking your fast with like good quality, like protein and fats, because it's going to fuel your body. We'll talk about this a lot more when we talk in 2 weeks about fasting. But again, like, you don't want to break your fast, and you don't want to introduce sugar as the first thing into your diet, because now you're talking about insulin resistance issues. You're talking about brain fog. Your body's going to be hungry the whole rest of the day. So again, you really need to watch sugar, especially first thing in the morning. If we ever do like have a sugary treat, it's in the middle of the day. Also at the end of the day, which is typically when people have dessert, is nighttime, is also one of the worst times for doing sugar. So again, typically in the middle of the day, where you have the most amount of time to like burn that off, is going to be the best. But again, what we're a huge fan of is finding sugar alternatives. So if you're like, I cannot drink plain black coffee, like it's just not going to happen. Okay, cool. Well, then let's find some healthier alternatives. So our nutritionist just did an entire Facebook Live about healthy coffee alternatives. And I'm so proud of a bunch of our patients, because a bunch of them, I think Rebecca was one of the ones that she gave up like her coffee creamer. But she gave you guys all kinds of healthy alternatives that have way less sugar. They have way less artificial ingredients. So again, when we're talking about sugar alternatives, we're not talking about Splenda or aspartame or any of those, because those are actually neurotoxins. They eat away at your brain. They create nervous system dysfunction. They'll mess with your hormones faster than you can believe. Okay. So those are not the answer. The healthier alternatives that we like are stevia, xylitol, and monk fruit. Okay. There's a new sugar alternative that's called allulose. Wasn't that what it was the other day? Somebody
Yeah.
asked us?
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on that one. My opinion as of right now, which it can change, my opinion right now is no, thank you. We did about an hour's worth of research looking at it, and all the information was just way, way, way too vague to give you an answer as to whether it's okay or not. So my thing is stay away from it for right now. So the three that we're a fan of are monk fruit, xylitol, and stevia, because they actually have zero sugar and have zero effect on the blood glucose.
And where does xylitol need to be derived from?
It needs to be derived from birch. Thank you. So make sure your xylitol is birch xylitol. I need to get in the habit of that. Not corn-based xylitol, because there's a big difference with those. So.
Yeah, and then anytime you have, well, what about this? What about that? If the word ends in ose, O-S-E, it's sugar. Mm-hmm. So you can razzle dazzle and say, oh, biochemically, it doesn't have a glycemic load and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, coming from the person that's trying to sell it. So OSE, it's sugar, deal done, right?
Yeah. And then people always ask, like, well, what about honey? What about like this or that? Okay. So there are healthier sugar alternatives. So like they still create a blood spike or a blood glucose spike. So like things that are okay in extreme moderation are going to be like a raw local honey. Agave is never okay. Agave is now processed like high fructose corn syrup and eats holes in the digestive system and can lead to leaky gut. So agave is not okay. But what are some of the other like coconut sugar?
Like cane sugar, coconut sugar, yeah.
Yeah, brown, what is it? Brown rice? What is it?
Brown sugar.
Yeah, like an organic one. Again, here and there, not a big deal. Those are better alternatives to just like pure cane sugar. But again, like when you can cook and bake and do everything with xylitol, stevia, and monk fruit, like that's just going to be a way better choice, because there is zero sugar in the body. So again, try and switch to those alternatives. They make them in little packs so that you can carry them with you. You can put them in your car so that if you're running around and you need it, like you have them. Again, set yourself up for success. Part of the biggest problem with this not becoming a lifestyle is not putting in the work to make it a lifestyle, right? So again.
Yeah. And one of my favorite cookbooks is Nom Nom Paleo. There's two of them, and then she has another one coming out, I believe, in December. And there's little tricks there. She'll, put in apple juice in lieu of, X, Y, and Z sugar that most people add to it. And so there's lots of creative people out there doing really cool things, doing it the right way. And, I know it's intimidating, but there are recipes I'll look at and I'm like, oh, well, she calls for orange juice. I don't even think it needs that. It works well enough without it. And so when you remove sugar from the diet and it's gone, your taste buds like rebuild. And so just a little bit of sweet is all your body needs, versus if you're having sugar all the time, and it's constantly going in, you need more and more and more sugar to wake up those receptors. It's wild.
Well, and then I always like to point out, like, if you've ever gone on a sugar detox, like, it's hardcore. Like day 3 and 4, like you're like a freaking drug addict coming off of sugar. And like that should be a huge, like, oh my God, what the hell am I putting in my body? Excuse my language. Because it's like, if you're having withdrawals and you're shaking and you're sweating and you're having like massive migraine headaches from reducing sugar, you eat way too much freaking sugar. Like it should not be that big of a deal. I know we're about to launch a no sugar challenge for, I think we're doing it in like September, October. I'll let Stacy announce that. But people always are like, oh my God, are you dying with no sugar? And I'm like, it's really not that different. The only thing for us is like, I just don't do fruit that month. But like, it's not as hard as you think once you've made a lot of lifestyle changes. And so like, I'm always one that I'm like, oh, I'll do this detox with you guys. Or I know when we make patients cleanse their liver, they have 30 days of no sugar, no alcohol, no nothing. And people are like, oh my God, they immediately think it's going to be the worst thing ever. And then a couple days in, they're like, oh, this really isn't that bad. Especially because you start freaking feeling amazing. And you're like, oh, like the light bulbs start turning on and you're like, oh, if I eat like this, I feel like this. Oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah. And just a testament to your resolve, Dr. Lacey. We had a patient come in who we haven't seen since 2014. So
Yes.
what, we're looking at almost 8 years.
Yeah.
And the first thing he said to you is, my God, you look younger now than you did 8 years ago. And wouldn't you say that sugar is probably the biggest reason for artificially aging?
Oh, absolutely. It's like literally, if you want to save money on doing Botox and fillers, like stop eating sugar. Sugar like spikes all these telomere growth. Like we don't need to get into the science of it, but literally just reducing sugar intake, like your collagen formation in your skin is going to be better. We'll talk a lot about that on another couple lives, but yeah, it's just like, it's insane. And I know like when he said that, I'm like, well, yeah, I've done a lot of things different over the last 8 years to be in this position. And like, it was just good to hear that as a positive affirmation, because we always like hearing positive affirmations and accolades for like the changes that we're making. Nobody wants to be sacrificing going out to eat and drinking and doing all this stuff and then like not hear that. So again, like that's one of the reasons why I love the community that we've created, is like we're all here to support you. And like if you're having trouble or you're on day 3 of a sugar detox and you need to be talked metaphorically off the ledge, like that's what we're here for. Like just said, like the no sugar really isn't that hard and you feel amazing. She's going through her liver detox right now. And like, again, there were probably a couple of days where she was freaking out, send us a message and it's like, you got this. What's the reason why we're doing this? And when you have that why and you have the accountability, which is what we're here for, like I promise you guys, you can get through anything. And the journey on the other side of this is so much better than being sick, suffering, and miserable. So again, like we're so passionate about getting y'all healthy because we know how much better you guys are going to feel. And like, you freaking deserve that. So nobody deserves to be sick, suffering, and miserable. Cool.
In addition, I would just hope that you give your body a little bit of grace, right? So I've got, patients that are starting this process, they're, getting their testing in, they started taking their supplements and it's like, well, I don't feel better. I don't feel different. It took a long time to break down, damage your body. We're in a hole right now. This is not an overnight process. This is quite literally a journey to wellness. You never really get there, but you can look back and say, boy, oh boy, look at the changes and the strides that I've made over the last 3, 6, 9 months, whatever it is. Don't be so hyper-focused in the here and the now. Let's look at what does that process do over time?
Well, and easier said than done, because again, we're all human. And when you do start some of these protocols, like there is a detox and you may even feel a little bit crappy in the beginning, and that's okay. It's normal. It's okay to be upset about that. I think that's also important to know. Like, we're here for you to say, like, why the heck do I feel like crap? Well, you're detoxing off of sugar. Like, welcome to day 3. By 5, you'll be amazing. It's okay. But again, we're here for you guys. So the last topic we want to cover today on anti-inflammatory is gluten. Oh boy, this could be an entire 17-week series. Here's what's confusing about gluten. We all know that gluten isn't good for you. I don't think anybody needs a food test to tell you that. I will tell you 90% of patients, when they get their food test back, there is some level of a systemic inflammatory response to some derivative of gluten, which just tells me like it's not processed correctly. We just have no business putting complex carbohydrates in our body. Whether your sensitivity shows it or not, like it takes so much effort and energy on your digestive system to break down carbs. They really should be a rare occasion. Our society, we eat freaking carbs with every meal. Breakfast is toast, breakfast sandwiches. You do lunch, you have sandwiches, you have pasta. I mean, like carbs were never meant to be consumed in the major quantity that we consume them in a standard American diet. Like it's out of control. So
Yeah. And to your point, Dr. Lacey, and I'll get some patients will be like, but we've been eating bread for thousands of years. The bread from biblical times compared to the bread today are two totally different things. They are not the same thing. It was literally called our daily bread, right? From the prayers, because it would go bad in a day.
Yeah.
Okay. You take Wonder Bread, I'll unwrap it, put it out. I'll check back next year. There'll be no mold on it. Okay. So it's not the same thing. You cannot rationalize yourself into continuing to eat it. What ends up happening is the wheat plant itself is sprayed with glycophosphates, right? And what glycophosphates do is they're a pesticide, but then we eat that and your immune response in your gut specific to gluten gets triggered, and it's called your anti-gliadin IgA. And so if your levels are high, it's triggering inflammation. There's likelihood that there's going to be autoimmune components to this kind of thing. Just it's a recipe for a horrible time. Just say no to gluten.
Right. And then that's what leads me to the next thing where it can be confusing, because now like it's pretty widely known gluten is not good. And so we have all of these like gluten-free products, which 99% of the time, excuse my language, are just as crappy as eating gluten itself. And so really what we're talking about is really just completely making that lifestyle change and not trying to find all these gluten-free alternatives that still have like oat and rye in it, which create an inflammatory response as well too. It's like, okay, listen, let's really make that lifestyle change. If you want a sandwich, well then let's do like a lettuce wrap sandwich, or let's do some of the new coconut wrap sandwiches, or things that are not grain based. And again, I will not tell you that that's an easy transition, because it's not. It takes a lot of energy, time, and effort to find things that you like, that maybe you like, your spouse doesn't like, or your picky kids. But that has to be the lifestyle. Like, so for instance, burgers. People are like, do you guys ever eat burgers? All the time. I think we're doing burgers for lunch today. But we never, ever, ever have a bun. Like, I don't care if we go out to a restaurant and they're like, oh, we have gluten-free buns. Yeah, it's still going to have bad oils in it. And for me, I have an autoimmune sensitivity to gluten, like whether it's on my testing or not, which it shows up every time. But that's just not something for me that I ever do. That doesn't mean you can't ever do it, but like I know my lines in the sand, and gluten is one of them. Like it never happens. So like we don't do sandwiches in our house. If you guys go back and look in the group, we do wraps. We found these awesome coconut and turmeric wraps that are made with like coconut meat, and it's like super hearty, and we do a wrap and we roll it, and they're freaking amazing. Like, so I personally don't miss bread. It took me a long time to not like spice it in intermittently and be like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. But it's not my thing. Anything to say with that, Seth?
Well, just, I think the bread thing, it's a willpower deal too. Yeah. When you're getting started on getting rid of it, there's a fly all over me. But I would challenge your partner and just say, hey, look, I'm going to go bread free. Would you do that with me, please, for 30 days? I think that works a lot better than everybody else eating pizza and you're off in the corner eating steamed broccoli. So try to involve everybody. Even if it's just a no bread challenge for a month within your household, just to prove to yourself that you can do this. It is not that difficult. 10 years ago, it was really hard. There weren't substitute products available. Ordering was a pain in the butt. Restaurants were really not aware. They fry breaded products in the same fryer that they would do French fries or whatever. And so it's just a mess. Now, all of a sudden, the game has changed. People are getting sick. They're sick of it. And so it's easier now than it's ever been just take that first step and say, you know what, no more, I'm going to move forward.
Yeah. How many of you guys are watching this have gone completely gluten-free? And when I mean gluten-free, like gluten-free the right way, where you've cut out everything. I know Tish does, like when we do burger bars at our house, like pretty much everybody in our family, we buy like that living lettuce because it's like so perfect for burgers. And it's just like, you're probably going to eat 2 burgers instead of 1 because you don't have the empty calories from the bread. I know Marissa's gone gluten-free. I know she's on here. You just feel so much better. And again, nobody said it's easy. Okay, but I promise you the journey is well worth it. And even like you said, a month, then maybe do a week. If you're like, there's no way I could do a month. Okay, we'll start with a week and then do a 14-day. Yeah, Marissa, I'm so freaking proud of you. And people are always like, well, what do you do with kids? I promise you, if you set a good example and you have healthier alternatives, like the kids, they still love mac and cheese. But when we make mac and cheese in our house, it's with gluten-free, like brown rice pasta noodles, or now there's cassava noodles, which actually taste really good too.
Lentil pasta.
Lentil pasta, if you're not allergic to lentils. There's so many other alternatives to do that are like truly healthy superfoods, that you can totally still have pasta. You can totally like, there's cauliflower pizza now. You made that chicken crust pizza that one time, which has no gluten in it. So again, like sometimes it does take a little bit more creativity and a little bit more work. But again, that's what we're here for. Utilize our community. I promise you, somebody has made a gluten-free pizza that tastes delicious and is willing to share their recipe with you. We make cookies all the time that are completely gluten-free. We just use like almond flour, coconut flour, things like that. So again, part of it is taking the time, setting out that time to create a success plan of knowing how we make alternatives. And then once you've got it, it's like, okay, I totally get this. I get how to bake gluten-free. I get how to cook gluten-free. And there you go. And again, that's why one of the topics we'll be doing soon is kind of going through our kitchen, showing you the spices and the oils and the utensils that we have to set you up for success. Because sometimes there is in the beginning, like, well, if you're going to do gluten-free, like you're probably going to need a food processor because you're going to be blending and making your own stuff. Or, I mean, I don't know why I'm talking about this. You know more than me. But
well, what I'm hearing you say is you just gave me permission to buy new kitchen gadgets.
Maybe.
Show everybody.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's totally not what I said.
But again, there's all sorts of fun stuff that we can do to make it work.
Absolutely. Set yourself up for success. You don't need to buy every kitchen gadget, unlike Dr. Seth. His excuse is that he's trying them out for y'all so that he can give you guys good reviews. That's his excuse, but that's okay. We like your food, so I'll deal with it. So
thank you.
All right, guys. So next week, again, we're going to be doing anti-inflammatory diet part 2, where we're going to be talking about like cooking oils and good fats and bad fats. We're going to hit again on coffee, like what we can do in our coffee to make it healthier, water intake. And again, that will wrap up our generalizations on anti-inflammatory diet. Again, no matter where you start somewhere, because this is a journey. You don't have to do everything overnight, but the sooner we make these changes, the better you're going to feel. So again, each change adds on to each change. Yes, good excuse. So again, we're proud of you no matter where you're at. Again, if you need help, just ask. And again, stay tuned this week for all of the written content of what we learned over today. And then again, next week will be part 2. And then the week after that, we'll be talking all about fasting. Yay. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for sharing your Sunday morning with us, or those of you that watch us after the fact. Please still feel free to comment, hit likes, let us know, share with friends and family. The more people we can get educated and healthy, the better, because what we're doing right now is not working. So again, we are your healthcare advocates. We hope you have a wonderful and blessed Sunday, and we look forward to talking with you guys next week. Bye, everybody.